Welcome to the Wild Contemplations podcast with Kristin and Cori. I'm Kristin, one of the hosts. I am a 1-3 emotional projector in human design. My astrology is Sag Sun, Libra Moon, Pisces Rising. And Cori and I are here taking a journey around the wheel, highlighting which gene key is illuminated by the sun in the current transit and its programming partner in the earth. And really just a projector and a mani-gen having a conversation about the energy that we feel. So, and hoping that our sharing of our experience opens and brings something up for you too that you'll share. So, Cori, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Yes, we're so happy to have you here with us on this adventure. I'm Cori. I am a 4-6 sacral manifesting generator and a Cancer Sun, Virgo Moon, and Virgo Rising. And last week, we were contemplating the sun in 16 and the earth in 9. So we'll do a little check-in after we take a few breaths together. And then today we will be contemplating the sun in 35 and the earth in 5. So if it feels good to just soften your gaze or close your eyes, tune into the body, maybe bring a hand to the belly or the heart, and just take 3 breaths together as we settle in this space. All right. So just to remind ourselves, we were contemplating the sun in 16 with the frequency bands of indifference, versatility, and mastery, and the earth in 9 with its frequency bands of inertia, determination, and invincibility. And we've actually the last time we met, we were in the 6th line, so at the end of that transit. So we've moved through this 35-5 for a few days. So I will share those frequency bands just as we do the check-in, because again, it will include these themes. So we have the sun in 35 right now with the frequency bands of hunger, adventure, and boundlessness. And we have the earth in the 5 with the frequency bands of impatience, patience, and timelessness. And I will just, I think I mentioned it at the end of last episode, but these are 2 of Kristin's prime gifts. It's her half birthday. And so she has her sun, natal sun in the 5 and her natal earth in the 35. So yeah, let's check in, see what's happening.
Lucky me. So as you were sharing the 16, it was interesting, right? With like the indifference to mastery. I was just contemplating, as Cori and I were starting before we started recording, we did like a brief little check-in, and I mentioned that I've been feeling emotional and that I'm like, I don't know what to make of it. I don't know where it's coming from necessarily, but there's this what it feels like is almost like an indifference. Like there's this, I don't know what it is. I'm not necessarily like digging into it. And I think that, that in itself actually, even though that is the shadow of the 16, I feel like that actually leads to the mastery. So just as using this as an example with my emotions, my emotional waves, since I'm an emotional projector, um, me just allowing my emotions to be and ride and go wherever they want to go and be on the roller coaster without like super contemplating or, getting heady about it has led to so much healing, like natural healing, without me sitting down and going through, my little modalities for healing a particular trauma or um, trigger, right, that comes up. So I thought that that was kind of interesting as you shared that. And then, um, I was thinking, funny enough, with the nine, the nine, um, not the nine, the five. Um, Rituals have been a big, big part of my life, and I look at that as a part of Gene Key 5 or Gate 5. And in the last few days, actually, I just started this new ritual where I get up, I'm practicing not not really looking at my phone in the morning, right? And getting up, and I go outside, I let the dog out, and I'm sitting in the sun for a few minutes, and I'm just allowing, I'm doing my energy work, right? So I go through a round of energy work, and then I do my grounding, and then I end with walking in the grass for a little bit. So it's kind of interesting that we're moving through this transit now, and I just started this new ritual in the last few days. But I find personally that if I don't do that reset in the morning, I do it at night too. But if I don't do that, my day just seems like it's all over the place. So I really depend on those. And I understand that a lot of people struggle with that, or think that, because they can't do that or make that happen every day, that it can't be a ritual. And I have thoughts about that, of course. So maybe we can get into that a little bit later, but that's my how I'm generally feeling right now.
Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I am feeling um, really this call to slow down. Um, I've been feeling it for the last couple of months, probably, but more now than ever before. It feels like out here is kind of like really speeding up, just time in general, too. Like I'll be doing something and then I'll look at the clock and it's like so much time has passed in what I felt was like a short amount of time. Um, and I'm just really feeling called to move at a slower pace, even though it feels like there's a lot going on. Um, just finding the balance between that, I guess. So not getting like too caught up in the different things that are happening like externally and really like finding my own pace with things. Um, yeah, so I have like, my Chiron is in the 35. So I don't have it activated in the body graph, but I have my Chiron there. Um, and then I also have my Uranus in the 5. So I tend to experience like the five's energy a little bit differently, a little bit more sporadically. Excuse me. But one of the things that I notice is like seasonal rhythms and rituals. Like, so for me, a lot of times, um, my my rhythms and rituals follow like a seasonal cadence. Um, and so I do start to feel around this time of year because the sun is moving into my 10th house. So it's like the winter, so to speak, of my chart. And this is why I think it's really cool to understand like how our own wheel works. Like we're following, the traditional general wheel, but like how the wheel in our natal chart works. It's been super helpful for me in feeling into those different rhythms and rituals throughout the year, like the changes when they happen, knowing that it doesn't necessarily line up with the season that we're moving through collectively or even maybe in the natural world, but that like there's a nuance to the way that I experience that season, and mine might be a little bit different, almost a little bit opposite. As we're coming into summer, I'm
Mm.
moving into like my winter too, you know? So I think that it's, yeah, I think that in a way, I haven't really been thinking about it until I'm just talking about it right now, but I'm realizing that that's what's happening for me. And over the last few years, I've noticed that like as summer approaches, as we come to the end of spring and into summer, I feel a call to, yeah, slow down and move, um, with a, yeah, just a slower pace than maybe the rest of the world is.
Hmm. Yeah, we've been talking about that for a while now. And just, I think, since the beginning of when we started recording, about how quickly the world seems to be moving around us. And, I have to say also, like, something that I've been noticing since we started recording is that I, in a way, am also slowing down in the sense that I guess maybe it's less slowing down and feeling less pressure to be doing, right? I'm more comfortable with the timing and the way that things are happening now. Even if they create some level of discomfort or stress or me thinking I need to get this done or whatever it is. There's still there's more ease behind it than there has been in the past, right? Where in the past I might have leaned into that discomfort and said, I need to do something about this. I need to resolve it. I need to release the discomfort. And now I'm like, okay, the discomfort gets to be there, and I'm still not going to move towards it. I'm still going to maintain where I'm at right now, or my body is wanting to do this. And so I'm going to follow that instead of thinking what my mind is asking me to do in that moment. So that's been a bit of my journey. And then I think, as I was saying with the emotions as well, like they're not taking over me. Just like the to-do list is not taking over me. It's just they're there and I notice them, and I feel more freedom from them than I have probably ever. Um, yeah, and it probably drives I'm just thinking my partner crazy because she's a Virgo and I'm so nonchalant about like it'll get done, or like I'm not worried about it, right? It is what it is. And I think um yeah, that might drive her a little crazy. The Sagittarius in me.
Yeah, I love what you highlight here. Like at the beginning when you were talking about the 16th gene key and the shadow of indifference, and just here in general in allowing like things to be there, but not to be totally consumed by them. And Richard actually talks a bit about this in the his contemplation of the 35. I think it's one of the keys where, yeah, I really love the way that um, he approaches the shadow, because he talks a lot about, and we've talked about this before, right? Like the gift is in the shadow. The shadow is not a bad thing that we're trying to get rid of. Um, it's, sometimes the words can feel like uncomfortable or something like that. But essentially, it's just, a part of the energy when we're not seeing the full picture and we're, um, yeah, just kind of experiencing it in from a more limited perspective. it's just when we become consumed by the shadow, right? That it creates this imbalance. So really, the spectrum of energy is inviting us into greater balance when we open up to the gift, and the city is part of all of it. But he talks about like a little bit of shadow is a good thing. Like we want that. It's gonna be there no matter what. Like it's in the spectrum of energy, so it's there. So it's not ever that we want to, yeah, like totally transcend it or not experience it. It's just that we want to find a balance with it, and we can use that shadow as just a signal to show us it's information essentially, right? It might just be showing us where we are out of balance a little bit and where we can come back to things like our rituals and our, the things that ground us and bring us into greater balance. Um, so I really appreciate you highlighting that. And again, you show this example of like it can be in all areas of life. Um, and it really is this invitation to, not take anything too seriously. Um, like to recognize that it's here and that we can still move through our lives with it there and make friends with it. He's like make tea and sit with the shadow, like make it your friend. Don't make it this thing that you're the shadow really, like if we think about it just in terms of a shadow, right? Like casting a shadow. It's
Mhm.
just something that's kind of like hidden, it's a part of it we just cannot see. So if we sit with it and like engage in conversation and engage in communication, just opening up to receive what's wanting to be revealed to us. I think there's a real, yeah, that's where we receive the gift in the shadow. Um, and I thought you really, yeah, brought light to that in both times you've shared so far.
Mm. Yeah, and interesting as you were just reflecting that we can't see the shadow unless we look at it. Like just our normal shadow reflection, right? We can't see it unless we actually look at the ground and see where our shadow is or on the wall or wherever our shadow is being reflected. And yeah, it follows us wherever we go, right? We can't get rid of it. So it is a part of us. And, just as you're saying, it's through the shadow that we illuminate the gift and the city. And yeah, we can't ignore that part of us. Um, so as Cori mentioned, these are two of my prime gifts, and I'm just looking at my notes here. So I don't think you shared, but the 35 is human design gate of change, and in the I Ching, it's progress. And then the 5 is an eight and human design the gate of fixed rhythms, and then the I Ching is waiting. And I thought it was really funny, just I don't think about the I Ching a lot, but the progress and waiting and this like juxtaposition between the two. And I've always said that patience is not like it's not something that's natural for me. I'm always wanting to get somewhere or go somewhere. But I will say that as I was reflecting earlier, that even if my mind is wanting to be somewhere or get somewhere else, there is this ease or like I'm becoming more comfortable with not being there, and I think it's through the acceptance of what is, acceptance of the timing, acceptance of the circumstances, the situation, whatever it is, the emotion that actually allows us to see it and move through it, um, as opposed to being consumed by it and not being able to see the spectrum of what would be allowed if we just accepted it with more ease instead of trying to analyze and, you know, deconstruct it, or like I'm thinking of like an FBI investigation, right? Like what why is this here? Why is this happening? I don't understand. I wanted this. I asked for this and this is happening and I'm confused. And instead of all that, instead of all the I can't think of the word, but like the investigating piece is what I'm thinking of. Um, we find that, oh, it's interesting. It's interesting that I asked for this and this happened. It's interesting that I was really excited to do this thing. And then this obstacle sort of showed up. And I feel like my journey is it's almost like when I think of this juxtaposition between progress and waiting, I feel like I'm being asked to just find total freedom in my body, like almost like I'm detached, right? I become the pure witness of my life and my body in that sense. And it's not an easy process, but I will say I remember Eckhart Tolle. I was listening to Eckhart Tolle for a while, and he would talk a lot about this, about being the witness. You are not like Eckhart Tolle went through this journey of he at one point wanted to commit suicide. And his awakening was in this part of him that realized he is not the part of him that wants to commit suicide. And so that's what, sort of illuminated his whole awakening. Right. And I love that aspect actually, because Peter Crone also talks about this. And I have this a video on my YouTube channel about anxiety, which is all very similar. And that you are not the person, like you're not the anxious person. You're not the anxiety that's inside of you. That anxiety is just trying to move through you. And Peter Crone says that, the suicide, people who ideate suicide, he talks about how there is a part of them, just like Eckhart Tolle, that wants to die because there's a greater part of them within that is trying to arise. And I feel like that is so beautiful, right? And so when we become this true witness, then we can really swing from the greatest highs to the greatest lows and just allow, right? We find that space to allow. And that allowance, that acceptance doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy. We don't become this numb vessel that the energy just moves through. But we say, I'm okay. I'm okay to feel this low. I'm okay to feel this high. And that's a big deal too. I won't jump down this rabbit hole, but that is also a thing for humans, is that we struggle with feeling the highs because we're not used to it. So sometimes we want to like, how can I bring this down a notch? How much pleasure, contemplate this if you're listening. How much pleasure are you actually allowing yourself to feel on a daily, consistent basis? Do you have moments, blips of it, or do you have, sustained periods of time where you're just enjoying pleasure? And if you are in that space, amazing. Congratulations. And also I would flip it on its head too. Like if you are in that space of feeling just so much joy and pleasure, are you allowing yourself to feel the sadness? Like who here is allowing themselves to feel the whole spectrum in a sustained way, in a way that's truly just witnessing and allowing? Because a lot of times we're one or the other. We tend to be in one or the other. And I would say most of the time in the lows. I don't know a lot of people that are just happy all the time. I just I don't know a lot of those people. Um, but yeah, it's interesting.
This is bringing up like quite a few things. So I'm doing my little do. Which one do I want to choose first? Because sometimes I don't get to them all. I was listening back to last week and I was like, oh, there are so many things that I wanted to say. It's like the one that I pick is usually the one that gets touched on in the other ones, and that's all meant to be. But maybe I'll remember a few right now. So one of the first things that's coming up is this has been super helpful to me in my journey because I was just talking with some friends about this the other day. I used to be really hard on myself about some of the thoughts that would move through me. Um, like you're kind of sharing, like some of these thoughts, we're mistaking them for who we are when it's really just energy that's moving through. And the human design helped me understand this, right? Because if we look at the body graph, and the way it's set up, those centers that are receiving information, that's collective, that's energetic, that's, influenced by the transits and the people around us. And it's actually not super personal. What is, you know, personal, I guess, or unique to it is how we then filter what's
Mm.
coming through and the sort of story or energy that we assign to it. And this has been helpful on many levels, not just with thoughts, but I was thinking about this when you were sharing about like um being separate from some of those thoughts and noticing that they're not who we are, but they're something that's moving through us and again, part of us that like letting all parts of us be and exist without thinking that any one part is who we are. Um, but yeah, the energy itself, emotional energy in particular, like what you're sharing with your emotional wave, like I see this very clearly is that like the emotions themselves are not they're not personal at all. We just make them personal when they move through us and we start attaching and assigning meaning to them. They're really just energy that's wanting to move through again as information, is showing us what's the world around us, life, the experience, like connecting us with others and the collective energy and all of those things. But it's not there for us to have to figure out what to do with it. It's actually just there to again move through. And so when we can be in those states, like you were sharing at the beginning, where you just are allowing it to move through and you're observing it. You're being the observer. And I think contemplation has been such um, a beautiful way for me, at least, to practice this. It's part of yogic philosophy too. They call it paruja, but it's this sense that again, we are not any of the things that are happening or going on, but we are the one that witnesses them. And when we can create just that little bit of space, it does allow us to open up to allow all of it in. And I think you and I have had conversations about this before, but like letting the fullness of life in and seeing all of it. Like I'm even thinking about how some of the more uncomfortable, challenging emotions can be quite ecstatic, actually. Like they can really be beautiful to experience the sadness and the grief and the pain, you know, because with like that shows that you opened your heart to love. I'm just thinking about in terms of like death because that's been kind of present in my field. But like, losing a person or a being that has been super close to us and connected to us in this lifetime can be extremely painful, but also so beautiful because that means that we loved that person, you know? So yeah, it is this really beautiful um adventure. Life is an adventure. This is what the 35 to me actually speaks a lot about. And um it is about kind of like opening up to allow for, you know, experiencing life in these new ways, looking at life in new ways. He even says, like, this doesn't mean that you have to go out and have all of these new experiences. It's more that you're invited to have the experiences that you're already having in new ways, with a new approach, with new eyes, with from a new perspective. He was like, you can even draw, you know, like a half-mile radius around your home, and there would be enough there to explore for an entire lifetime or more. So it's not that we have to like go out and travel the world if we don't want to. I mean, I prefer, I like that sort of thing. I like them both. Um, but we can explore our own, you know, backyard. He even talks about the 35 being a bridge, you know, bridging us to the person that we see every day in the store, but maybe like don't know their name, you know, like the way that we can kind of bring our individual little worlds, or he calls them silos. He talks about the 35 being like a silo buster. So like if a silo is like a contained um, you know, little energy system. It's about like opening up to move beyond that way of being and doing and seeing in the world and to connect with the world around us in these new and exciting ways and allow the adventure of life to kind of unfold without feeling like we have to like fit it into this box to be safe. Because I don't know, in my experience, honestly, the safest thing actually is really just opening up to life and knowing that no matter what, we're okay. Like you said, we're
Mhm.
okay. Yes, there's highs, yes, there's lows. Yes, there's, you know, intrusive thoughts. Yes, there's like, you know, out there thoughts, all of these things. But like it's all okay. It's all just there for us to see and to experience and to have like to let in and to have fun with. And yeah, this has been a really big, these keys, both of these keys have been big teachers for me in my life and will
Mm.
continue to be.
Likewise, likewise. Um, I love a couple things that you said here. So the silo piece is interesting. I think of it, yeah, I'm thinking of it more like tunnel vision, right? Where you're just so contained in what you know that you don't open to anything else. So even like going to the grocery store, for example, and talking about finding new adventures, right? If you go to the grocery store and you just are hyper focused on what you're getting and then you leave and have that experience versus you show up and you're picking out a tomato and you're talking to the person next to you, or just opening up to the people around you, saying hello, and smiling at someone, holding the door for somebody. I went to grab dinner the other day, and there was an old woman walking out with a walker, and I held the door open, and she stopped and she said, "Thank you for helping an old lady." And I was like, "You're so welcome." And it just made me smile that she like did that. It's funny too, because even thinking about something as simple as that, thank you. Not a lot of like that expression in itself has lost so much over the last, I don't know, 5, 10 years, maybe more than that. I don't know. But I feel like we used to say thank you a lot more. Now everyone's in such a rush and such a hurry to go places. It's like they don't stop to do that, right? How many times have you let someone even out in front of you in your car and you don't get the wave? Like I get so excited when I always wave to people, but when somebody waves to me, I'm like waving waving in my car like, they're my best friend or something, because I'm so happy that they're they're acknowledging that. They're saying thank you. You know, when I go through a drive-through and somebody takes my order, I'm saying thank you. Um, I just feel like there are certain things that have been lost because the world is sped up so much and people are in their silos, right? In those spaces of tunnel vision. I also love that you shared that, we can have these ecstatic experiences through pain and suffering. And it really is beautiful. Like I was thinking, to the degree that we feel that pain and sadness was the degree to which we loved, right? Um, and yeah, there's like as I'm expressing this, like my throat is tightening and I can feel chest pressure right now. Um, I'm I guess I'm thinking a little bit about my kitty cat who's 21. And I think this is the first time I'm getting emotional on this podcast. She's been with me all those years. I got her when she was a baby, and it was one of my coworkers was at work and she was like, I have kittens. And I was like, I'm gonna go get a kitten today. And I just went and got a kitten and I wasn't expected. And um I picked her out because she was symmetrical. She had like, the white boots in the back and her little paws, I had the white in the front and she had, she just was very symmetrical, which is why I picked her. And she um rode home with me and like laying on my lap. And then she was in the passenger seat. And, she's traveled with me. We've moved to so many places, so many states, and we traveled for 4 years together, moving month to month. And she's a great travel partner. She's my little adventure buddy, and she's been with me. My throat feels like it's going to close. She's been with me through many lifetimes, like she's someone who, like she didn't come into my life by chance. And there is a part of me that knows like we're going to have forever lifetimes together. And like what I feel with this closing of my throat is that I'm not really, as much as I love her, there's so much opening of love that I still protect myself from. And right, like it's not easy for me to express this. So that tells me that I'm holding it, right? I'm like protecting it, holding it inside. And you know, it will be a great loss when she transitions. And I know that we'll be together forever, in this life and in the next life and the life after that. So I know it's not forever. It's not like a goodbye forever. But yeah. So I'm gonna catch my breath here for a second.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us. Um, Again, as you expressed, like it's incredibly challenging to open ourselves up, to express that, to feel the fullness of that, to just like surrender. I just keep having like full body chills moving through me. But what a gift for us to, first of all, get to like a little peek into Harley's like adventure and story and and also the love that is between you and is opened up and being shared with the world. I'm just really grateful to witness it and to be inspired by it. Again, just speaking to that. And then I know we've talked about it before, but I just feel this in what you were sharing at the end is like, yeah, when someone leaves us in one form, there's certainly that deep grief around, that form and that way of experiencing them and having them in our life. But then there is this greater opening that happens. It's almost like that love begins to like flood out and and like really expand itself in the world around us. And then they're everywhere, like it's almost like they're more there than they were before because we're not just seeing them in that one form, but we're seeing them in a multitude of forms. And I think that that is something that I've really learned over the last several years, especially in losing like a deep soul connected being, like you said, that travels lifetimes with you, is like knowing that, yeah, they don't like really go anywhere. And in fact, because their energy is like more free, it's like in all of these places. And that, again, is part of, I think, the beauty of those more painful experiences.
What a true example of boundlessness and timelessness.
Right? It's chills, full body chills.
I used to, or not used to, I always say that, and I don't particularly love going to funerals. I don't know if a lot of people really do, but not to mention we probably need to overhaul the way that we do them, in general. That's a side conversation, but um, I don't go visit grave sites. And I also don't celebrate like death anniversaries. And this is a personal choice, of course. And it's because I believe that I have access to them all the time, that I have more access to them in a sense, right? Like when my grandfather passed away and I can connect and be with his energy at any time versus like the limited times, for example, that I saw him in my lifetime. Um, it's something I believe, right? It's why I don't want to be buried as well. Because I don't believe that my soul is there um any longer. And then it's just taking up space in the earth that to me doesn't need to be taken. But again, these are my personal thoughts and opinions. And but yeah, like in that transition, what would it feel like for us to create that boundlessness and timelessness in our human lives and not just, you know, recognize it, if you will, after the transition? Um, what would it feel like to open ourselves to that level of connection that's not siloed? What would life feel like from that perspective? And also, we're not called to a game that we can't play. So we're all capable of doing that. These words exist because they're possible. These concepts exist because they're possible. And so, what would it feel like for us to knock down the walls of the silo and really just expand our energy and let it meld with the world. And I think about protection from a lot of in a lot of ways, too, with my intuitive work. So I do feel it's important to have protection of our energy in ways that, it's an interesting conversation actually, like as I'm expressing it out loud. Like what I wanted to say there was, so that we can keep out what's not aligned for us or what's not in our highest and best interest. But is that a matter of control? Like if we truly opened our energy, I don't know if you can convince me to stop doing my protection exercises in this moment, but it is a real contemplation, right? Like if I truly trusted my energy to interact with any energy and know without a shadow of a doubt that I could maintain my my piece, my piece of the puzzle, right? My energy, my purity. Like, what if the protection is just that? What if the protection is just the focus of being as pure and as open as I possibly can be? And in that sense, nothing can penetrate me that doesn't belong in my energy. Like maybe that's part of my journey, right? Is in releasing the protection, right? Even me in expressing my love, right? There was a protection there, that made it difficult for me to express, not because I didn't want to in this moment, but that I could tell had innately been there, that I'm breaking through in the moment of my expression. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, especially when it comes to energy workers. And maybe Cori, you and I can talk about this in Weavers,
Yeah.
our next Weavers, because I think it's very interesting and could be very illuminating to the healing world. I'd be interested in hearing people's thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm incredibly interested in exploring this more. It's been something that I have been um, allowing in my field and contemplating, especially um, this year, I think. I've opened up to new levels of receiving, and I've recognized that there's parts of me that are afraid of receiving because I'm afraid of like receiving things I don't want, you know? Um, yeah, like there's this level of feeling a need to protect myself, and in doing so, then shutting myself off from life. Um, so yeah, I'm really curious to dive into this in conversation in Weaver's space. And then what was coming up too while you were sharing, I could just feel so like the 35, I really love it because it's a special place. You know, all of these gene keys, they connect with places in our genetic makeup and in our DNA. And it's said that this 35 is like so ancient that it's has almost evolved over time to be this like way that we can change our DNA and like change our reality. In the Gene Keys book, it's the chapter is wormholes and miracles, and it's talking about accessing these greater faculties that live within us that we might attribute to like superpowers or like something beyond humans' capabilities. but like even talking about like flying and things like that. Then again, like we see them in our movies and stuff like that. So we know that there is this like access to it. Um, and it just really speaks to bringing online parts of ourselves that maybe lay dormant. Um, and I think that this really happens again through lowering our defenses and opening our hearts more fully. But yeah, it is like this very interesting conversation that comes from that. And maybe it's a process. Like what's just coming up for me right now, I'm not going to go super deep into it, but we kind of talked about this on a previous episode too. Like maybe there does need to be at some point like this level of um boundaries and protection that then, take us to the next place where we can maybe let go of some of that. But when we're kind of yeah, at different points in our journey, maybe we need more of that containment. And then we can slowly start to kind of allow it, like open things up again. Once we have that like centered feeling and greater trust in the unfolding of things, maybe it is this process of um, learning to let love in all the way, but it takes some time.
Yeah, I'm feeling that maybe instead of protection, it becomes this, like, I like the word centering that you used. And also, I was feeling like secure, like this securing of our energy, right? I almost wanted to say containment at first, but it's not containment, right? Because we want to allow the opening. But when it's almost like a becoming, right? When we become our energy in its fullness, there's a word here that is going to evolve. And it will be interesting because then I will shift my teaching in terms of protection, um, to reframing it as instead of pushing out what's not here, securing what's here. Sorry, pushing out what's not mine, right? Quote unquote, what's not mine, and securing the purity of me, right? Because that's where I feel we really become impenetrable because we become fully the expression of our energy that is meant to be. And if we fully honor that and step into that as an identity, if you will, then there is no penetration. There's experience and evolution, but there's nothing is penetrating my energy and dictating what my experience is, right? Or what my expression is. So if we can really learn to settle in that space, to really own and honor our true essence, then perhaps protection becomes obsolete. Um, I'll pause there because there was something else I wanted to say and it's not coming to mind. So I'll just pause there.
I love it so much because like earlier when I was like, oh, there's so many different things that I want to kind of grab and touch on. Um, Pausing was one of them, actually. Um, I think it really speaks to these keys, and I think contemplation in general is this invitation into pause. And the pause is so supportive of, again, that observation and that witnessing that we're talking about. Um, And just again, like the pause to open the door, the pause to let someone in front of you, the pause to stop and have a conversation that we might not otherwise have. Um, yeah, I think that it's super powerful and like we might not think that it is. And again, we might equate it with like falling behind or taking too much time or whatever it is. But I think that this is one of the lessons that I've learned with the five is that time is not linear and that these pauses can actually take us further than constant movement can. I'm just being reminded too of like, I had this experience with a turtle recently, and like a really big one showed up in my yard. The energy was kind of, yeah, wanting to send a message. And I feel like that message is like the honoring of our own unique pace and of the pause and of the slowing down. And even the gene keys they're doing this year, more than a year long retreat right now, going through each of the sequences. And we're about to start the Venus retreat. And Richard was just sharing something as like, it's about to start. So it was kind of like this last invitation in. And he talked about this sort of story. I think it maybe was Rumi who shared it, but of a goat, like who has a lame leg and kind of is like falling behind the group. And because she's fallen behind the group, she's able to like enjoy the things that the others in the group are like just totally missing. The pasture, the water, the little things along the way that they're moving so fast that they don't even notice. And then when they come back around, she's found all of these things. So when they are, after their journey, hungry and thirsty, she can kind of show them what she found in her more like slow journey. And I just thought that that was such a cool example of the power of pause and the power of like slowing down and savoring. I think I've been using this word a lot, but just like savoring the simple pleasures that are right in front of us and yeah, enjoying that and not feeling like we need to get somewhere else really quickly because we're right here right now.
Hmm. I'm going back to what you were talking about with the open, undefined centers and how they're collective energy. And then, where it becomes personal is where we filter. I I speak to that usually when I'm reading people as a bias, right? That we're experiencing that energy through a bias or through a lens that we know because we know what that energy is. Um, and so we tend to look at things in that way because it's what we know. And what I'm thinking about here right now is this. So if the journey is not to take those things personally, right? Like to recognize that we put things through a lens, but it's not our job to personally attach to them and um, deconstruct them in some sort of way. How do we how do we find acceptance that that's our lens while also releasing the attachment or experience that we have through that lens, right? So, meaning if I if I experience things through my lens, right, and I know what that feels like, how do I detach from that experience, knowing like that I know what this feels like, I know what this feels like. How do I detach from that into being open to what it feels like while still maintaining and accepting that that's my lens? Do you know what I'm saying? Right. So how do we release the lens when it's our lens? Like, um, I'm curious about that. Is the journey then, does the journey become like, oh, I have a tendency to see things through, like one of my traumas is abandonment, right? So if I have this tendency to see through this abandonment lens and react to things through this abandonment lens, does the journey become like, oh, I get that that's one of my lenses and that seems to be coming up right now, but I don't feel attached to it being because of abandonment, right? Is that the journey? So like it's always there and we just detach from our experience of it because there has to be an acceptance of the fact that it's our fucking lens, right? But we also have to let it go. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely see what you're saying. Um, and yeah, I think that it's again this sort of journey that unfolds and it starts with the awareness that we begin to cultivate around that. Like if we are taking those pauses, if we are stepping back and witnessing and observing what's happening, we start to see, well, here is a pattern. I can see that you know, I default to looking at this particular thing or just life in general through this particular way. And I think that in recognizing that, and again, in creating space with that, like watching it happen, not assigning too much to it or creating too much around it, but just watching it unfold. In my experience, at least, it starts to like lose the charge.
Mhm.
And then it starts to slowly kind of open up. Like more starts to enter the conversation because I think the charge isn't like uh containing it or like constricting it in a way.
Mhm.
And yeah, I've thought about this a lot actually with like, you know, in astrology, human design, and the gene keys, we have these charts and profiles. Um, but also like things are always shifting and changing. So these are snapshots of the sky at the moment that we're born or 3 months before we're born. But then we're moving through life and the sky is constantly shifting and changing and things are activating in different ways. Like, the transits are maybe activating a particular channel that is not a lens, but suddenly it becomes a lens for me. Or I'm in a relationship that's activating a particular lens. Um, Also, we have things like progressed charts, that they look at like
Mhm.
over the years where the planets move, and that gives things a different flavor. Um, your solar return charts, all of these things kind of shift the way that the lens that we are looking through. And I think the more that we uh, take those pauses and just create a little bit of space to observe, then we'll begin to really experience it all, right? Because we're we're moving around the wheel. Yes, we have that imprint at the moment we're born, and that's gonna walk with us in certain ways. But then there's also sidereal, astrology and like different. There's just so many different ways of looking at it, and I think what I always come back to is we have all of it. We have all of the signs. We have all of the gates. We have all of the gene keys. And it's just going to be, yeah, that throughout life we're experiencing them in different ways depending on what's going on.
Mhm. Yeah, it reminded me as soon as I asked the question and you started talking, it reminded me back to the beginning. It took me full circle in the conversation of how I'm able to experience now, like, for example, my emotions and sit in discomfort that previously was I had to get out of the discomfort as quickly as possible. Now I can sit in it more. And also, the other thing it reminded me was that our lens is our gift. right? So even if, so we never really fully release that, right? We never fully detach from it because it's a part of our makeup, right? It's a part of our design. It's a part of like our lens is what gives us the ability to see things the way that we see, the way that is that's our wisdom, right? The way that we experience life goes through our unique makeup and then gets to be expressed in our gift or our shadow, right? Um, if we're projecting and not aware, and that's also a thing, and um I mean that's the journey, right? I always say too when I do readings, like just because I might say something is unconscious doesn't mean you're not aware of it. It's just have you brought it into awareness, right? Because that's the human journey. And that's all we can do, right? If we bring everything about us into awareness, right? Maybe that's the protection thing, right? I'm aware of my full being, of my full essence. And if I have that awareness, then nobody can fuck with that, right? Because I don't have blind spots essentially. Now that's also arguable, like that's an arguable uh or a little philosophical debate we could have at some point because honestly, I I'm not sure that we become fully realized, I'll say, in our lifetime. Do we fully realize all of our gifts? Do we fully bring that awareness to every part of us? Do we? Can we do that before we die? Or is that the true human journey? Is that the end? Is that the I've brought everything I need to awareness, right? And maybe at the very end is the moment that you're fully expressed in this lifetime as you were meant to be. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but it certainly this conversation is bringing up a lot of little philosophical things, but I'm here for it.
It's the adventure, right? The adventure of life. I'm absolutely here for it as well.
Hmm. So we are wrapping up on time here. Cori, is there anything else you would like to add into the conversation to feel complete?
I think I feel absolutely complete.
Mm.
Um, yeah, this was a really fun one. And I'm excited to, this one we're coming in kind of the middle of the transit. Um, I like contemplating at these different parts of
Hmm.
the transit. So it'll be fun to like carry these contemplations. I mean, through longer than just the transit, but just to see what else kind of opens up and unfolds over the next few days.
Yes, for real. And I will say again that this space has been a ritual for me in itself, just committing to doing this podcast with Cori, which I did not think I would have the energy for. I was excited about it, but I was a little worried that I wouldn't be able to keep up. And we've been really flexible with timing and life and all the things and have been able to maintain doing this. And it's been such a healing space for me. I think more than I can even recognize right now. Um, but I never got into that conversation, but these are the little things I think that we can have in our life that get to be rituals that maybe people don't commonly think of as rituals, right? So I would love to hear from you guys listening. Thank you for being here. And, Cori and I would love to hear what your experience is. Like, what are you experiencing in these transits? And even if this brings up something that you think is unrelated, like I promise it's all interrelated and connected. So, um, yeah, we would love to hear from you. So, and if you love this episode or know somebody who would be interested in hearing it and hearing this conversation, please share it. And let's get this energy out into the world, these contemplations out into the world. So thank you for being here. Thank you, Cori. And we'll see you guys next time.